Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the grecochess YouTube channel, the channel where we discuss, we analyze, we comment, and we talk about all aspects of the game of chess. In this video, the 86th Chessanity Chess Tournament, round 1, the game that I played at the first round of the Chessanity Chess Tournament. But before we begin talking about the game, let's talk about the tournament, and let's share the details of the tournament. Share the screen. It took place on February 1st at Syosset, New York. This is a small town at Nassau County in Long Island. There were various sections, and with my rating, the only section that I was eligible was the under 2000. The under 1200 was already too low for me. The time control for the 2000, there were 3 rounds, meaning you had to face 3 opponents, and it is G45, D5. What does this mean? It means that when game starts, players have 45 minutes on their clocks. And when it's your turn to move, then for the 5 seconds, the clock does not move. This is the so-called delay. After that, the clock continues going downwards, and players need to complete all their moves before the clock goes down to 0. Round number 1. Let's give a look at my opponent. And my opponent was Victor Ni, whose rating, as you see here, the regular is 1409. Compare this with my rating. My rating officially is 1631, but it has already gone up to 1680 after the latest tournament in Queen's Chess Club, the 2-player team championship that has not yet passed officially. In any case, I was more than 200 points ahead of Victor, so this meant that I was the favorite. But favorite doesn't mean too much. Let's see what actually happened in the game. I have the white pieces. Victor has the black. And the way things are going is that on my hands, I have here the score sheet. And after every move, I'm going to copy the moves one by one to the chessboard. And after every move, the computer is going to show the evaluation with positive number, meaning white is doing better. Black, negative number means that black is doing better. The number itself, its absolute value, says by how much are you doing better. Also, a comment on the move, anything from brilliant with 2 exclamation points to blunder 2 question marks. Which move would have been the best, and what are the top 5 moves for the other player whose turn is to come. And I'm starting with the white pieces, and we play a lot of theory moves. I'm going to go briefly through them. This is standard opening for white with the central pawn. King's pawn opening, king's knight variation it's called. And now I go for the Scotch game. You see here Scotch game. That's you're going to see how the various openings are called after every move. And of course, black plays a standard move. And then here is my first choice. Instead of taking the knight on d4, that is the most common move, I go for the Scotch gambit, bishop to c4. And Victor seems to know it quite well. Knight to f6, top move. My pawn goes to e5. And here there is a very tricky case for black. If they are not familiar with that, they'll try to save the knight. But the best move, believe it or not, is ignore the knight and instead attack the bishop, pawn to d5. We completed the top 5 moves theory, everything. I'm ahead by 0.12, which means, of course, nothing. And we continue theory because I know it quite well, and it seems that my opponent also knew it. If the opponent doesn't know it, they've been able to defeat quite strong players in less than 15 moves, sometimes even with 10 moves. Theory everything until here. I take with the bishop, because if I take with the knight, then I have to worry about my bishop. And we completed the top 10 moves, everything theory, and I'm ahead by 0.20, which means nothing, of course. And the question is, who is going first to deviate from theory? And it happens to be me, pawn to c3, which the computer thinks a mistake. I'm down now by 0.88. Instead, computer wants me to put the pawn on f3. Knight goes now. Knight is in a difficult situation because you see no matter where it goes, it's attacked. But if it goes to g5, bishop takes it, but queen takes bishop. Computer wants me after it goes to g5, send my pawn to f4, knight comes back, but at least the pawn on e5 is protected. Yes, it's protected, but the problem is that the diagonal from af to g1 is open. And I might end up with having pieces pinned and even lost. That's what I was afraid, but the computer thinks this is better than what I actually did. As they say, among two evils, choose the smallest one. Queen to e7 for black. And now I don't like the knight on e4. Let's see how can I throw it away. And Victor takes my pawn on e5. Got already a pawn by move number 12. What I want to do now is I want to have a double threat. Knight goes to f3, and both my knight attacks the knight from d4 goes to 3. Both my knight attacks the queen, and my bishop attacks the bishop. And Victor plays the only move that can save both. Queen goes to e7. So if I take the bishop, queen takes back. Takes the pawn, takes it. Mistakes in the computer would rather have bishop take bishop. Bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop. We finished the first 15 moves, and let's see how's the score. Victor is ahead by 0.19, game almost even. And myself, after all that, I was able to take the bishop on d7. No bishops from Victor, but Victor knew he was not going to lose a piece because he takes my knight on f3. But now I get my pawn back. Computer wants me to take the pawn on c7, but then Victor can take the pawn on g2. I have to move my rook, and the pawn is one square of promotion, but computer thinks that would be the smaller evil. I take the pawn, so I don't have to worry about the pawn, but my king is too open. Victor wants to throw my king queen away. I get now my extra pawn, and now I'm a pawn ahead, but my king is so exposed, I'm not sure if it's worth a pawn, and computer thinks no. Rook goes to d6. What Victor wants to do is go to d6 and check. And then if queen lands in f3, cannot go in one move, but can do it in two moves, then game is over. I see the danger, so I may send my king to h1, so rook can go to g1. But computer thinks a blunder. Look at the two question marks. I'm down by 4.33. And Victor is ready. For a very dangerous attack. Great moves to the computer. Mary goes to g1. So yes, Victor can check from f3, but there is no follow-up with rook on g6. Victor decides to triple along the d file. Rook goes to d8. And but computer thinks a miss. And now from being so much down, almost even, we've completed the first 20 moves. Victor is ahead by 0.63. I send my rook now to g3, so Victor cannot even take the pawn on f3. I'm ahead by one pawn. Great moves in the computer. Victor goes to c5 to threaten the pawn on f2. I send my rook to g1 to threaten a check on g7. And if Victor is not careful, for example, if he takes my pawn on f2, check, and then if king goes to f8, rook g8, it's mate. If it goes to h8, I can send my rook to h7, king takes it, queen goes to f7, and then g7, and I'm winning. If Victor does anything other than defend himself for the g7, uh, from me taking on g7. And unfortunately for me, Victor saw it, sends his pawn to g6, so forget about this line. Now I need to protect the f2, and I send my king to g2. Rook goes to g2. So the pawn is f2 is attacked twice by queen on c5, rook d2. It's defended twice, king g2, and no, it's defended only once, king to g2. So it's going to be lost if I do nothing. And that's why my rook goes to f1, and it's defended a second time. And Victor sends his rook on e8, expecting to place it to e2 and then take the pawn. And by moving the pawn to g6, not only he avoids the immediate attack ahead, but also he doesn't have to worry about his back rank. I send my pawn to f4 so that later my rook can go to f3 and attack better the f2 pawn. And Victor, exactly as expected, sends his rook to e2, ready to attack on f2. It's attacked 3 times by queen c5, rook d2, rook e2, defended currently only twice by pawn f, by rook f1 and king g2. Computer thinks it's inaccuracy, so after 25 moves, Victor is ahead by 0.52. But at the time, I need to tell you that I was using too much time. I was feeling very nervous. I was feeling that in spite of having an extra pawn, my king was almost going to get destroyed. I was thinking very carefully every move how to play it. And now I place my rook exactly on f3. The pawn on f2 is safe. But the pawn on b2 is not safe. And I cannot even take the a7 because the queen protects it. And yes, and Victor equalized material, but computer thinks we are even at this point. I check from d8, they know what else to do. King goes to d7, only move. No, it was not the only. Yes, queen could also go to f8. To f8, I would exchange queens. And now I see that the combination of queen and two rooks is so dangerous for me that I am exchanging queens. I'm sending my queen to d4 for check. And by the way, at this point, computer thinks a mistake. I should have moved the pawn to b5. So now by 0.97. Just to tell you, by now I already had less than 5 minutes. I wrote a few more moves, but then stopped writing, and I'll tell you what happened. Of course, queen took, my pawn took. At that time, we stopped writing the moves, and what happened was that I was able to come back. We changed rooks, and it seemed that it would be a pawn race, but unfortunately, at some point, I ended up blocking, my pawns were blocking the rooks, so Victor had his c pawn that was able to go comfortably all the way until the end and get promoted. Until then, I think that had I avoided, and of course I was very short in time, Victor had more than 20 minutes. So when we reached the dramatic ending, Victor had more time to think carefully. And from what I think now, but I have not recorded the moves, is at some point, uh, while trying to push my pawns, I ended up having to stop the c pawn, but my pawns blocking my rook, so it would not go back and stop the pawn. So Victor won the game. Victor, congratulations. In spite of being more than 200 rating points below me, he won the game. And let's give a look at the review, see what does the computer have to say about this game. It says that you see here that other one point here where Victor had a big advantage, were more or less even most of the games. 82.9 accuracy for me, 6.4 for Victor. I played as if my rating was 2150 and Victor 2300. And no brilliancies, great moves, 4 for me, 1 for Victor. Book moves, 10 for each of us. It's rare that players have so many book moves. Best, 4 for me, 9 for Victor. Excellent, 1 each. Good, 3 me, 1 Victor. Inaccuracies, 2 for me, 3 for Victor. 5 mistakes for me, 3 misses for Victor, and no blunders. So round number 1, unfortunately for me, didn't start well. But let me tell you that after the latest Chessanity, my unofficial rating went up to 1680, just 3 points below my personal best of 1683. And I was hoping that maybe I could make a new record after this tournament, but things are not starting well at all with a loss. But time to forget about it, continue second round. And in the next video, I'm going to share with you what happened in round 2 and the one after that, what happened in round number 3 of the Chessanity tournament. And in the meantime, thanks to all your viewers, the subscribers, to the likes and the comments. If you have your own experience from chess tournaments, did you play in any tournament recently? You may want to write in the comments, of course. If you have faced these bots of chess.com, how well did you do? Or if you tried the puzzle rushes, how the way did you do? I will be glad to hear your news and read your comments. This is the grecochess YouTube channel. I'm Harry Lauseneziris. Ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.